We are already so close to 6K subs, and my current large goal of 10K subscribers is now close at hand. I'd just like to thank you all once again for taking an interest in my channel, because when I look back I wasn't expecting it to blow up so fast. So I'm glad to know that to this day people are still discovering my stuff. I'm planning on reading a novel called Working with Warriors by Dennis Martin, who was a karateka and a bouncer around the time when karate was pretty new to Britain. I wish I knew of more stories set in this era, what I like to call the back alley martial arts sort of time period. It's the 70s and 80s when you had people teaching kung fu and karate out of small martial arts clubs, people learning in parks at night or parking lots together. There were dojo storms, particularly strong inter-club rivalries that would sometimes lead to them fighting each other. I think what adds to the appeal of this time period for me is how different the arts themselves felt back then. Look at Shotokan karate then and now, and you may notice how people hit a lot harder and had a lot more aggression in competitions in the past. Suddenly even point fights may look impressive to you. It's not just karate that had this sort of reputation. I'm sure there were kung fu styles that were the real deal, or at least trained a lot tougher back then. You could probably have found some people willing to share what they knew. There were definitely kung fu clubs around, that's for sure. So if anybody watching this was alive back then, let me know if there were people working in restaurants who taught kung fu, or if that's just fiction. This sort of hidden martial arts teacher is a very specific niche that I find really cool. If this is your first time visiting this channel, be sure to check out my other videos because I've covered a manga called Kenji, which takes place around this era. The main character has an arc where he trains behind a Chinese restaurant. This entire sort of thought process made me realize why I'm so endlessly drawn to traditional styles. I always come back to them specifically because of the culture there. These arts are connected to the larger cultures that they come from, of course, but traditional styles are like subcultures themselves. They have their own etiquettes, and it feels like the mental benefits are a lot more explicit. Traditional martial arts are pretty ritualized, and there are downsides to that, but there are also benefits to this ritualization. Like the feeling of being part of something bigger, part of a subculture, is more obvious. It sticks out in the mind if you have to wear a gi every time you go to class, or bow before stepping on and off the mat. This isn't limited to just karate or judo, of course. Sumo is one of the biggest, no pun intended, examples of this. It fascinates me how rikishi must dedicate themselves to sumo in every aspect of their lives. They have to live in heiyas, or stables, care for their hair a certain way, and in the outside world, they have to dress traditionally and are absolutely forbidden from getting into petty fights. They have to conduct themselves well and live by a code. It's a very romantic type of lifestyle. Let's shake things up a little, take a break from all the weeb or otaku stuff here. Let's take taekwondo as a new example. Keep in mind, I've never done taekwondo, so I might be wrong here. My guess is something similar happened there. They used to hit way harder and were far more aggressive in matches back in the day. My guess is it must have had something to do with competition rules or how things were scored changing. I'm pretty sure electronic sensors are used now, and yeah, they've made it easier to detect contact, meaning easier to score points, but that also means you don't need to hit nearly as hard, and you don't need to train to hit hard either. This is how we ended up with people calling it foot fencing. This is basically how martial arts become watered down and eventually ineffective. Certain point of view, you might see it as inevitable. I have a few theories about traditional styles, which is why I'm showing these specific panels here. One is that they're only designed to get you good enough to handle yourself in a brawl. You can obviously see Doppo Orochi here making the same argument. Full contact styles have definitely proven to be useful and can serve as effective basis for kickboxing or MMA fighters. They have. I'm simplifying here, but kickboxing itself is just an evolution of karate. It's karate with gloves. I'm not saying that a guaranteed effective style like boxing is boring. It is absolutely beautiful, but just in a different way. It has a different flow. The reason I'm so drawn to these traditional styles is aesthetics above everything else, but I'm sure you know that already. Bare-handed combat, hand movements meant to attack vulnerable points like the throat or eyes, and so on. Tiger claws, chops, spear hands, it just looks so cool. Don't underestimate the power of aesthetics, in everything. And yes, Muay Thai has a very strong sense of tradition and it has its own rituals like the Waikru, but I want my martial arts to be just like my Japanese animes, okay? There will always be that hope in my mind that these moves might work, but unfortunately, unless they're adopted as a part of the meta by pro fighters, we can't know for sure. Plus, you're always going to have to spend time conditioning your fingers, toes, and so on, and it might just seem like a waste. These are niche moves, and it's probably not even worth spending years building your fingers up to use them when knuckles or shins do the job just fine. Palm strikes, by the way, we know work. They're traditional style, but ask Bas Rutten. You see how we have proof for that? We need that for all the other fancy moves, and everyone can start training them. Things like the Nukite or Spear Hand are a relative unknown right now, in terms of effectiveness at this point. I consider them vestigial movements for now. They are in kata and stuff, sure, but we don't see them in live combat in MMA. We don't see people make contact using them when going live. And we cannot just assume they would work. One style of karate, called Uechi Ryu, has been living rent-free in my head for quite a while now. If you guys are Kengan fans, and you want to see the Kaiwan style from Kengan being used IRL, Uechi Ryu is basically what that is. They focus tons on spear hands, thumb strikes, and toe kicks. It looks really cool for sure, I just don't know if it'll work. Because in the videos I've seen, it's in choreographed sequences or against boards, or it doesn't make contact. It looks like it will work, sure. They look like they put effort into their stuff, and it can break boards and stuff. But my question is, can it work against someone moving towards and trying to attack you? Another thing is it might take too long to condition yourself to even try and use these moves without snapping your fingers in half or breaking your thumb. And that leads me to another theory. Certain traditional moves might make more sense if you think of them as strikes to be used when grip fighting, or just as supplements to basics like punches and kicks that we know work. Like the shoulder or elbow bashes and some trapping stuff could make more sense in that context. Same thing with the open-handed stuff like finger strikes and so on. But again, that's just a working theory. If we reinterpret traditional styles as being designed for a man who is already familiar with fighting, there might be something there. It's the same with kata or forms. Their intended purpose might have been either attribute development, like teaching what muscles to activate in certain moments, or to be used against morons who had no idea what they were doing. Another aspect that might explain a lot is gloves versus no gloves. Traditional styles were bare-handed, which might explain the strange moves and hand positioning. So if we let stuff like bare-knuckle boxing tournaments develop for a while, you might see fighters go back to these old stances and figuring out the original applications of lots of these strange moves. Gloves definitely change the game, so my guess is removing them might change it back. I talked about this in a previous video, but a lot of the useless stuff is more than likely misinterpreted. Look at the pulling hand in karate. This was my original explanation that I used. It's called the hikite, right? But the hikite also exists in judo, so you put the two together and you end up with kudo. That's probably what these styles were supposed to look like. I'm pretty hyped about the new Virtual Fighter, so that's why I've kind of been going down a kung fu rabbit hole. If you haven't noticed by now, that's kind of what I do. I find some fictional style that I like and I look more into it. I hope the microphone is working. I don't know what happened there, but I'm not re-recording it. Now, MMA is probably just us rediscovering how we always fought. Even the Greek pankration, I think that's how it's pronounced, included kicks, all the kicks that we know work, which is very curious, which has led me to believe in the universal fighting style. Something resembling some form of mixed martial arts like Sambo or Sanda was always there, always there. A style acknowledging striking with every single one of your limbs, takedowns, foot sweeps, and wrestling, putting it all together, is probably the oldest martial art in existence. We don't know its name, but it must have been there before being watered down, leaving leftover forms, and then popping up somewhere else in the world under a new name. And this happened over and over again until we reached today, which is MMA. That's probably just us rediscovering, re-unlocking how we always fought. We're switching topics again for this last piece. Now, unfortunately, Bruce Lee passed away early, but if Jeet Kune Do developed further, it might have looked closer to the MMA we have today. I'm pretty sure he was getting more into grappling in sort of the later parts of his life, so we really can't know though. maybe with less groundwork and keeping the iconic vertical fist, back fist, and stuff we know Bruce was a fan of. Yeah, I know Jeet Kune Do is more of a philosophy, it's not supposed to be a set style, but I mean, come on, guys. By this point, it's how Bruce Lee fought. That's its name. There are things that make it identifiable. I was rewatching Enter the Dragon, which is why I included this in this part all of a sudden. Now I'm interested in emulating that. It's a lot closer to modern styles, it's not as rooted, deep stances, blah blah blah. You won't have to completely change your rhythm and guard if you want to emulate it. You might have to go southpaw, but that's, I don't know, up to you. As a personal anecdote though, I've borrowed some stuff from JKD, especially vertical fists. I've slipped jabs straight through guards, like a straight line, just right through. It's a neat trick, I haven't been to an actual JKD gym by itself before. I've just borrowed some stuff, but if you've actually trained it proper, let me know what you think. Has the style evolved, or is it still mostly emulating Bruce's style, or what's the situation? Like, is it being taught by, like, Dan Inosanto or something? Following Bruce's philosophy, like actually what he said, would probably have made it look way different by now, but me personally, I see the value in keeping the style as it was, as a sort of living museum piece. Speaking of Jeet Kune Do, my current idea for my next video comes from the panels I'm showing you on screen right now. I'm probably going to talk about Kengan, because I am very angry at how Sandro is writing things. Like, he wasted Himuro, for example. Just one example, he wasted Himuro. Cool design, the depiction of JKD was really cool, and he got turned into a jobber. The worst kind of jobber. Even more hilarious is that in Omega, you're expected to like respect Himuro's power when we saw him get torn apart, not even in the early rounds, but on the boat on the way there. So please do let me know in the comments if you guys want to see a series going into like undeserving jobber status, or like characters who didn't deserve jobber status. I'm not going to really be analyzing this just from a martial arts perspective. It's also going to be from a narrative perspective, narrative potential. So, yeah. Just let me know. For one last theory regarding traditional arts, it's that they were created to fight against people who are not actually going to fight you. For example, if you are an ancient peasant and someone's trying to steal a bag of rice you are carrying home, you could get away with using hip punches, punching them in the solar plexus, or kicking them. They're not specifically trying to fight you, so they might have more openings. Anyways, let me know if you guys like traditional arts, which ones you think are the coolest, how you think they were supposed to work, how they can improve in the modern day. Just leave comments, have a discussion, have fun.